For Grahame Knott and a group of divers, diving was life. Known as wreck divers, Knott and his friends were always on the hunt for new treasure at the bottom of the ocean. In fact, they'd spent the last 10 years searching for one wreck in particular at the bottom of the English Channel. On the last day of diving season in November of 2018, Knott and his diving friends would discover something on their sonar. With their undercover camera revealing what looked to be the remains of the wheel, was it possible they'd finally found the wreck they'd been searching for? The truth is absolutely amazing. Hello, story lovers. I'm Scott Leffler, and here is... This U.S. pilot vanished 50 years ago. Now divers found a wreck that could solve the case. Before we move on, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notifications bell for new amazing videos. Known for being a popular place for wreck diving, the English Channel is an area of the sea that lies between England and France. The channel is quite narrow and is only 21 miles across at some of its more narrower points. Although the channel is quite cold and most divers prefer warmer waters in the Red Sea or the Caribbean, the treasures that can be found in the English Channel can't be beaten. Why? Well, due to the many wars in the area, sunken vessels are quite common in the channel. Unlike the crystal clear waters of the Caribbean, the waters of the channel are pretty murky. There's also a risk due to it being the world's busiest commercial shipping lane. Thankfully, the abundance of wrecks makes it worth all the trouble. Due to the many sea battles that took place in the English Channel, the treasure that can be found is endless. From sunken planes to warships and tanks, the two world wars left behind plenty in its wake. And for divers like Knott and his crew, they were ripe for the taking. Knott and his group, the Deeper Dorset, had great success throughout the years searching for wrecks. In the 1990s, they discovered the wreck of the Arakan, a trade ship that had made trips between India and China. An amazing find, the ship had sunk in around 180 feet of water when it collided with another ship in 1874. Can you imagine how incredible that would be to explore? Another ship that Knott and crew discovered was the wreckage of the Minneota, a cargo ship that had been sunk by a German submarine. The sunken vessel was filled with silver bullion, and Knott had the opportunity to be the first diver to reveal the ship's location. Despite these amazing finds, there was one wreck that had eluded Knott and his friends for 10 years. It wasn't a ship or a plane from the wars, but a 37-ton Lockheed C-130, a transport plane that had gone missing over the English Channel in 1969. Why was this plane so important? You'll see. The missing plane is well known in aviation circles, and it all traces back to 1969. During this time, American U.S. Air Force mechanic Sergeant Paul Meyer was working in Suffolk, England at RAF Mildenhall. Prior to serving as a mechanic in England, Meyer toured Vietnam. While not much is known about his time in the country, he was known to drink heavily and suffer from PTSD, according to those he served with at the base England. And with the horrors that took place in Vietnam, you can't blame him for trying to self-medicate. Another cause of stress for Meyer was he had been recently married prior to being deployed. His wife Jane and his stepchildren were back in the States, and according to an official report, he was under considerable emotional stress. According to other documents, Meyer was furious for being passed over for a promotion. Let's just say his state of mind was not where it should have been. Ralph Howard Vincent was a young sergeant serving at RAF Lakenheath, which wasn't far from where Meyer was stationed. He remembers Meyer very well, and that he wasn't in the best state during that time due to outside stress triggers. According to Vincent, he first met Meyer in a pub where he was in a completely drunken state. He was sprawled out over a table and wasn't able to respond to Vincent when he asked him to get off the furniture and sit like a proper gentleman. Despite being too drunk to function, Meyer became alert when another round of drinks came by. Vincent remembers Meyer stating he would sit at the table if he bought him a drink. This would be the beginning of a very close friendship between the two men. Vincent remembers vividly that Meyer wanted to fly back to the United States on leave. He came up with a proposition, Vincent remembered. He said he wanted to get a private pilot's license so that he could fly home on leave, and he wanted to split the cost 50-50 with me. After a particularly long night at the pub, Vincent and Meyer went their separate ways like they usually did. However, Vincent never saw him again. Meyer, requested to be transferred to the Air Force Base in Langley, Virginia, was ultimately denied. This would set off an unfortunate chain of events. One evening, Meyer got drunk to the point of being almost violent. His friends wrestled him into bed, but he immediately snuck out the window. He would later be found by police rambling and stumbling down the road. However, instead of being taken to jail, he was brought back to the base. This would be a grave mistake. Not thinking straight, Meyer concocted a plan to fly home. He broke into the room of Captain Upton and stole the keys to his truck. Making up a fake name, he called the crew in charge of dispatching planes and placed an order for one with enough fuel to get to the United States. You won't believe what happens next. Meyer was very specific in the plane he wanted, a Hercules C-130. He demanded the plane be ready for takeoff when he arrived, and the staff obeyed, not thinking twice that they were being lied to. With the plane fueled and ready to go, Meyer had his opportunity to get home. However, there was only one problem. Meyer had no official pilot training. Well, he'd been around pilots. He'd never flown a plane on his own before. However, this didn't stop him. He guided the plane down the runway and took off into the air. This would end up being a very bad decision. After guiding the plane into the English morning sky, Meyer managed to hook up a radio system so he could call home. When he told his wife he was on his way home, she was shocked. Jane knew her husband couldn't fly a plane and immediately became quite panicked. The last words that Jane remembers from her husband were, "Babe, I've got some trouble. I'll call you back in 5." After their call, the plane crashed into the English Channel. Meyer's body was never found, despite some wreckage washing up on shore. According to Jane, she could never get a direct answer as to why her husband managed to get a plane in the air and then subsequently crash it. Why did he crash like that? You know, the U.S. Air Force never told me he'd crashed. No one told me he'd crashed. I just got a telegram to say the plane was lost, Jane told the BBC. I'm sure I've not been told the whole truth. While there were many rumors as to what happened to the plane, some believed it was shot down for containing sensitive documents on board. For Grahame Knott, it doesn't matter. Regardless of why it crashed, he was determined to find the wreckage. When speaking with the BBC, Knott revealed his obsession with the plane wreck was quite simple. Honestly, I ask myself that question all the time, and I just keep coming back to the image of young Meyer up there in that plane, completely alone. And I guess I'm just doing it for him. He was just a kid, you know, just a homesick kid. Due to the lack of high-tech equipment and a minimal budget, Knott and his diving buddies could only spend so much time out on the English Channel. They were also limited in their resources, so detecting any signs of the wreckage was more difficult than if they had a $100,000 research vessel. Therefore, it was a chilly November day in 2018 when Knott's sonar picked up something on the bottom of the channel. Dropping their camera in the water, they first noticed a large wheel sticking out of the sand. This was followed by a section of a wing with rivets. Could they have really found the missing plane? Knott and his team were stunned. They'd finally found the missing Hercules. While many hoped that this might finally provide answers to what happened to Myers, for Knott, the wreckage must be honored. It's not like a typical boat wreck. It's more like a sacred site, especially since Myers' family are still alive, he told the local media. After hearing about the discovery of the wreckage, Jane revealed it did bring her some comfort to know his final resting place. However, it doesn't change the fact that her husband died needlessly. He was having bad nightmares about Vietnam, Jane told the BBC. We wrote to each other every day, and we marked the days off a calendar. You know, he just wanted to come home. All he wanted was to come home. Did you like the story? Check out our channel for more.